When I first started my career 15 years ago, it was 2009, and I had absolutely no idea what to look for in my camera equipment. Before I reveal everything here on this table, what I'm gonna be using this year, I want to tell you my mindset behind the equipment that I use. When I first started, I think what was most important to me in my own journey was the color. And I think along the way, that's where I found film. In 2011, so I started 2009, it was 2011 in December when I first shot my first roll of film, my Contax 645 camera, and I was just in love. It was like for the first time, I was seeing the colors in my photos that I had been trying to create in my digital camera. And that's what led me into this obsession and passion and intimate relationship, if you will, with film photography. Up until one of the cameras I'm going to share with you today that really changed the game for me, and now I shoot a lot more digital. But up until that camera, I shot most of my weddings on film photography. The main time that I use digital would be at night, and I'm going to tell you what I'm using, what gear for what parts of the day. So we're going to walk through all of that, and today you're going to get a really good inside look at what to look for in your own camera gear, and hopefully some inspiration and a great conversation. So we're gonna hang out and look through all of this. Now, one thing that I have really taken through as a red thread throughout my career is the idea of mastery. I think in this realm of being a photographer, there's the idea that the equipment that you have is going to produce what you see in your heart and in your mind. There's that creative desire to create colors or lighting or movement, whatever you're trying to create, and maybe you're feeling a little stuck. I can tell you that it's not always, 9 times out of 10, in fact, I would say it's not your equipment. It is the mastery that's gonna get you there. The camera that I used for 7 years was a Canon 5D Mark II. And until I met my husband, Devin, and he kind of pushed me, that was my main camera. I then later got a Mark III. That was my other camera. And that was really all I had. I really mastered it. And that matching of digital and film, I was able to really build such a strong portfolio without getting the newest, hippest cameras that are out there. Of course, I love new gear and I'm all about it. And we're going to talk a lot about gear here on this channel and setting you up for success. But I just want to give you that mindset because that's really how I have approached my entire business and my artistry is mastery. And when it works, man, that's something to really think about before you start changing things, which is why I shot film for so long and I still do. All right, so if you're ready, let's go ahead. We're gonna dive on in. So where I wanna begin is that camera I was talking about, the one that changed the game, that allowed me to step back from film and move more into digital. This has actually been a really big thing for our students inside of the Wedding Photography Masterclass, our core curriculum where we've worked with over 600 photographers. They know that I've loved film because I started this program back in 2018. So they've been with me through this journey. And now it's this conversation of, whoa, Marissa, you're shooting more digital. So without further ado, the camera that has allowed me to do this is the Fujifilm GFX 100. In fact, we pre-ordered it. So this camera is absolutely phenomenal. I use it throughout the entire day, 99% of the day, to be honest with you, from harsh light to low light, prep, ceremony, reception. Every single part of the day, this camera is on me. I think it is the medium format size of the sensor that really allows me to duplicate the film that I get from the Contax 645, which is also a medium format camera. Whereas my Canon 5D Mark III and here my Canon 5D Mark IV, which is my backup camera. And I do love this camera, but it is a full frame sensor. And so this one being medium format already gets me closer to the film. Another factor is the 16-bit color. The dynamic range that it gives me is so much more like film. One thing with a lot of cameras that are out on the market is you really want to be able to preserve the highlights to really, if it's a white wedding dress, for example, on a sunny day, you want to show all the detail. You don't want the dress to be blown out. And some of that is in your settings, but a lot of it is also in the camera. And so having a camera that has the ability to produce and allow for high dynamic range is really what you want to look for. That's how you can shoot in great harsh light and shoot in, dark receptions. And that's why I love playing with this camera without a flash, in fact, during the reception, really capturing the ambiance from start to finish the entire day. So This is my main camera. On this camera, I'm using a native lens, the Fujinon 63mm 2.8. If I'm being honest, I do use this lens 90% of the time that I'm using this camera. So majority of the day I'll use one lens. And in fact, if you haven't done so yourself, I would challenge you to try shooting on less equipment. If you find yourself switching lenses, it really can hinder your creative flow. Having to stop, change the equipment, having to reset your camera. Every time you do that, you're stopping the creative flow that is happening for you. And so what I really try to do is move my body to achieve shots. And of course, sometimes there are times that I need different lenses, and I'll show you what I do for that, but I just want to challenge you in that way. Less gear oftentimes pushes you artistically in a way that you didn't know was inside there. Okay, so if you want to unlock some artistry, push yourself with less gear. I promise you'll thank me later. What we use for additional lens, instead of purchasing more lenses, I had already invested so much in Canon glass. Since you know, I began my career with that Canon 5D Mark II and that 5D Mark III. And so those lenses that I had way back then, believe it or not, I still use. They are tried and true, they're phenomenal, and I have great results, and so I have stuck with them. One of my favorite lenses is the 85mm. This is a phenomenal lens. I love the depth of field, and it does remind me a lot of what I would be using in my 80mm Contax 645 film camera. At the time before I got the Fujifilm, this was my favorite go-to lens on my digital, and it really is such great glass. The other thing that I use specifically on the Fujifilm GFX is the 16 to 35mm lens. During a reception, I really love to be able to get close to people. I mean, especially large weddings. There's a lot of people, and so I'm able to get a really wide shot, you know? And so this gives me that flexibility. I can be close and get portraits, or I can get the full room, you know? And so I do need to have shots like that to fulfill the total gallery. What allows me to use my Canon glass on my Fujifilm GFX camera is my nifty adapter. It is the Viltrox EF to GFX adapter. The really cool thing with the GFX 100 is that there is a setting within the camera that will recognize when you have full frame lenses on the camera, and it will correct. All right, but before we go on, I just want to reiterate that this is the camera I use 90% of the time. As of today, when you see me posting images, you can go ahead and bet it's probably this camera, okay? I don't shoot as much film anymore. And in fact, I'm just gonna leave it on me for the rest of the video. How about that? Because as I go, I'm gonna start packing these cameras on me, because you know, sometimes I'm shooting and I have 3 cameras on me on a wedding day. It's kind of funny, but it's needed, okay? You're probably wondering, okay, Marissa, if you use that camera, if you use the Fujifilm GFX at night, what about with the flash? Are you using anything there? And the answer is yes. So I do have a flash for this camera, although if I'm using flash, I'm gonna be honest, I'm probably using the Canon 5D Mark IV for that. We'll get into that here in a moment when we move over to that camera. But there are times in which I am still using the Fujifilm GFX, mostly for seated dinners, toasts, first dances, cake cutting, and exits. Some of those big events during the reception, this is where I will use this. Although if the light is appropriate, or I feel inspired by the scenery and the environment, I will not use a flash sometimes too. So it's a give and a take. So I will just put this bad boy on here just like this, lock it on there, and we're ready for action. And in fact, I have now, if we're going to talk about this lens, I want to take a moment. I want to show you something that really makes my flash my own system, if you will. Like, I have done this for years at my receptions, and honestly, I love the way that it looks. I think nowadays there's all this talk about like direct flash and just so many things right now with flash. And to be honest, the experience for your client with direct flash is terrible. I don't care how it looks. And the other popular trend is to light the entire room with a lot of off-camera flash, and that's just not my vibe either. It really doesn't look how it looked at that time. And the thing that I love so much about my 50mm lens and my 80mm lens and setting that bad boy at like a 2.8 is the fact that there's such beautiful depth. You know, the thing about love about film is the bokeh, if you ever heard that term, you know, this blur of the background, really bringing the subject into focus. And one thing that happens when you're using a 16 to 35 millimeter lens, especially if you have it wide open at 16 millimeters, is you lose depth. Everything's in focus. It's not the magic that was there before. And so you can light up the room and have everything in focus and have it all bright. You can have direct flash, and yes, the background will be a little darker with the subject in focus, and I get that. Or you can use my method, which is tried and true, and I love it. And it's with these. And it really bounces the light forward by putting it on the lens back towards the subject without being so aggressive in their eyes. Now, I know some of you, we have different names for this, okay? Because I made a low light video, which I'll put here for you guys. And some of you let me know that I called it the wrong thing. So I'm going to tell you that I call it, I'm one of those people, I will make names up. I think I called it a light diffuser. I think it's like, I want to call it like a light reflector card, okay? That's what I'm going to go with for this one. But anyway, we put it on here and I've used it for years, and boom, and I love it. Is it funny? So here it is. In fact, there's a few scuffs and marks on it, you know? She's seen better days. But what I love about this, I just want to reiterate to you, is the fact that like that lens creates that beautiful depth, although with the 16 to 35, I'm not going to get depth. This creates a sense of depth in my reception images because it is putting light on the subject, but it's still allowing the darkness behind to let the subject stand out, to create this focal point in the image. And I truly do believe that it is a really strong process for beautiful images and a great experience. And that's what's most important for your work, because after all, we are serving clients in the wedding industry and it's the biggest day of their life and nobody wants a flash in their face. I hate to say it, sorry. And I also don't want the room lit up like every 5 seconds too. So sometimes I just don't like to use flash either, you know, so I'm just gonna tell you. But when they're dancing and they're in there, the flash, they don't care, you know? We're all having a good time at that point and it's perfect for that scenario. And so I love that, perfect. Now the next most used camera is the Canon 5D Mark IV. I love this camera. It's tried and true. And I am just one of those people, once it works and you master it, what you're able to produce could be even better than the next generations that come. So don't get caught up in all the hype, okay? This is my backup camera and I do use it majority of the time for receptions. And so, like I said, the Fujifilm GFX 100, I do use at receptions, but for the dancing, a little more action shots, things like that, I'll pull this out. I'm just so comfortable with the glass on this camera, and it has always been my favorite reception camera. So I don't really use it at any other part during the day. I might use it a little bit at the ceremony if I just want to have a different perspective. And on this camera, I am using 50mm 1.2 Canon lens. I'm also using my 16 to 35, especially for shooting receptions, getting the entire design, the full ceremony design. If there is a really tight room for bridal prep, I might use this lens. But there again, I do talk a lot with my clients and supporting them, bringing their vision to life. And a lot of times their vision isn't me being forced to use this lens. So we're usually using that 50mm or 85mm for bridal prep. I've used these lenses for over a decade and they're just so solid, so good. But there's a little dent. The next lens that we have, and I haven't shared this one yet because this is the one that I use probably the least, is the 135mm. This one is my sneaky lens, I like to call it. I use it a lot for receptions, seated dinners, maybe a little bit during ceremonies, but not so much. It's really during dinners, really during really intimate moments. And the reason that I do is because I do want to be a fly on the wall. I do want to get the intimate moments though, like if they're holding hands or kissing across the room. I want to be able to capture these types of photos without people actually realizing that I'm getting them. Especially rehearsal dinners or welcome parties. You know, a lot of times these people have never met me, a lot of their guests and family, and they're kind of warming up to me, you know, and I want them to be so comfortable. So this is a great lens for that, but I'm not using it any other time. Like literally, that's it. And so my 135 though is a must, because otherwise those special moments of wedding celebration weekends, I wouldn't be able to capture. So I love this. I love this camera lens. Now, before we move on, one thing that I want to note about this camera and this lens is that this duo right here is exactly what I wish I could have started out with in my career. Like if I just had a small budget and I just wanted my camera, my lens, and just want to, you know, take off running in my career, this certainly has the capability of producing images with quality of top photographers all around the world. I just want to make that point because I love this camera and the lens. Next we have, what have I not showed you? Okay, yes, the Canon lenses. I have 2 of them, and they're the same 2 that I ever purchased. Oh, I said lenses. I told you guys I kind of say things. It's a flash. I have my Canon flashes that I use, and they're the same 2 that I purchased from when I very first started my career. They have been dependable. They are amazing. I love them. And so they are the Speedlight 600EX RT Canon flash. And I got 2. I already said that. And that is why I have 2 of these flash reflectors. Remember, we're making up words. After this video, I'm gonna laugh and go find the correct term. But I've used them for so many years. It's one of those things, once you get it, you got it. You don't need, you know. Okay, and and the camera that I use the least nowadays, but I used to use it the most, is my Contax 645 film camera, medium format. Now that one right there, that Contax 645, that's the first one. This was the second one. These cameras are they're really reliable. I know a lot of people are nervous to shoot film, but I've really never had any issues. My experience with film is that it has allowed me to become the artist that I am today. I quite literally would not be the photographer that I am if I did not shoot film. You know, the realization that every single photo you're paying for, every single time you click that shutter, it really matters. There's a lot of weight and consideration and curiosity that comes in to the process that you don't have with digital. You know, when you're shooting digital, you can take a lot of photos. There's not a lot of pressure. You can just play. You know, with this, it's a lot more curiosity. It's a lot more, I would say, even more play. You know, you really have to master every element of the image. You're looking at the composition, the body language of your subject. You're looking at the lighting. You're looking at the background, the colors. Every single factor is coming into your mind as you click the shutter, which happens with digital, but it's on a whole nother level with film. So I love this camera. I love Richard Photo Lab for all film processing. Now the film, I know Fujifilm 400H went out of stock. They don't sell it anymore. We have the rest of the stock. It's our fault. Just joking. But we did buy a bunch, and I have a bunch of boxes of it. And so when I do shoot film here and there, which I still do shoot film occasionally, certain scenarios I feel inspired, especially fashion editorials that I'll shoot, I will shoot film as well. But more and more, I start to see where there are instances where I prefer the digital with the Fujifilm GFX over the film. And sometimes there's instances where I love the film over the Fujifilm GFX. And in fact, the film helps me to edit that digital image in a way that is more film and true to life like. But I do still use my Fujifilm 400H. The other film stock that I love to use, which I mostly use for like bridal prep, I use this film stock more so outside. This one is the Kodak Portra 800. I love to use it indoor for bridal prep, a little bit lower light scenario. And then I have Ilford 3200, which is my black and white film. I use that at any time, all times. I know that there is Ilford 400, but I'm not much of a fan. I honestly will even shoot the 3200 in bright light. Sounds crazy. Try it. You'll love it. I do. Okay, moving right along with that film camera. Another thing that I love to use because I love shooting details with the film. I find that that's another area that with the Fujifilm I haven't quite been able to master just yet. I'm still working through it, but I think what it is that I have focused so much of my career on skin tones, and when I'm shooting flat lay, there aren't as many skin tones, and so the film just, man, it knocks it out of the park every time. And so in order to make that, which I didn't tell you, 80 millimeter Carl Zeiss lens, which that Carl Zeiss glass is just so phenomenal. On this lens become a macro lens and get those rings and those tight details is my Hoya filters. And it comes in a pack of 3 or 4, and they're different focal lengths. And you can even get filters that go on your digital camera as well. So they go on the camera, the lens, excuse me, just like this. And so you can get these filters for any lens as long as you have the right size that goes with the right lens. So you'll want to make sure to double check that before you make your purchase. All right, so those are my main lenses, main camera bodies, main flashes, and film stocks. I think we've gone through all of that. The last thing, last but not least, that I want to show you guys, because it is worth mentioning, we talked a little bit about reception lighting, and one thing that I do love to use here and there, this isn't you know, every wedding. It really just depends, but it is a actual light. It is a video light. It is the Aputure 120T, and I absolutely love using this lens for light for first dances specifically. It is so awesome to be able to control the front light and backlighting of the subject when I desire to do so, which is almost always during receptions. And so this allows me to not use a flash during the first dances also, and really nail focus a little bit easier when they're spinning and having some of those moments. And so the coloring just looks so beautiful. It still has a really natural look that flash sometimes strips away. Also, off-camera flash strips away. Just using this intentionally has been able to, has allowed me to create some really phenomenal images that I wouldn't have been able to do so otherwise. So they also can be really fun during dancing. I will say, like, kind of the party vibes, especially backlit. However, we have had time here and there, not often, where they may say, hey, can we turn that light off? We want to dance, you know? So it is something that we use very minimally. We do talk with our clients beforehand because of the first few times when that happened. We want people to feel comfortable at all times, and their experience comes as number one to us. And that's why this really is only used during first dances, maybe a little bit here and there, depending on the scenario and on the client and their preference, because again, our clients come first. Now, here's the thing. This light system here is not the easiest to set up. It takes some manpower. Devin has a C-stand and a pretty tall pole that this thing goes on. Let me tell you, like, you know, that if you've ever been at a wedding, which if you're watching this, you have, you know, you are at a wedding, if you can imagine, and you know the lights that they have set up. This is blending in with those lights. You know, this is that big. It's over behind the band. You know, it's really up high, and it looks like it's a part of the production. It is not a simple setup. Okay, and so there again, another reason we don't use it all that much, but when we do, we love it. So I think that's a wrap. This is what I will be using in 2024. And I just want to remind you and hopefully inspire you to pursue the path of becoming the master instead of the one looking to your equipment, always looking for the newest thing to make you the master. It really is in your intense pursuit of becoming a master with the equipment you already have in your hands. Now, if you are wanting to build that multi-six-figure business, and I know you do, be sure to click the link in the description before you head out. It is a free training I've created to help you get unstuck in your business so that you can reach new levels of success this year. And if you're just starting out, it's going to show you how to build your business the right way the first time. All right? I cannot wait to share more with you in our journey this year as we are documenting weddings all over the world, full of behind the scenes, editing tutorials, and lots of advice for tips and tricks for you to build your own business. Until then, be sure to like and subscribe so that you are in the know for when those videos come out. I adore you, and I'm cheering you on. Anything that you dream is possible, and you're already on your way. I'll see you soon.